Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois are set up for their rematch. First fight was very, very controversial in a lot of ways. And, there's a lot of talking points because of that going into the second fight. And I don't think it was just because of the controversy of the first fight, but also Dubois has been on an absolute tear since. So it's obviously heightened the alertness and the curiosity about this rematch, essentially, Funny thing is, first of all, Daniel Dubois, the run that he's on is kind of monumental, especially by modern day standards, where guys who are at the top of the weight class a lot of times don't, or near the top of the weight class, don't take on the best opposition possible, or don't take on a lot of fights where they'd be underdogs. Having said that, the heavyweight division is kind of different in that you do see a lot of guys taking each other on and trying to really solidify status as the number one guy. That's one thing that's praiseworthy about the heavyweight division. The funny thing about boxing is that people have always said that the way the heavyweight division is the way boxing goes. Well, the heavyweight division has been pretty good because all the top guys don't duck each other. They've been fighting each other, even into the previous generation, which is now fading out, like the Joshua, Wilder, and Fury generation. They pretty much all fought each other. I know Wilder and Joshua didn't fight each other, but there was a lot of head-to-head good battles. Even Joshua and actually, Joshua and Fury didn't fight either. Joshua and Wilder didn't fight. But Wilder fought Fury. Joshua fought Usyk. So on and so forth. There's been a lot of fights head-to-head in the heavyweight division that you don't see in the lower weight classes, where guys just kind of spiral around each other. They're in each other's orbit, but they never actually fight. One of the frustrating things about boxing. So, having said that, the fact that Daniel Dubois comes on the scene and he was very hyped up early on, and then sort of fell back a little bit when he took the loss to Joyce, and then the controversial as it was, the loss to Usyk as well. There's a lot of question marks about Usyk, but think about this. Dubois, since Reynolds wins over Philip Bergovich, who was the boogeyman in the heavyweight division and was undefeated, Jarrell Miller, and then Anthony Joshua. Prior to that, he lost the fight to Usyk. So what do all those things have in common? He was the underdog for every single one of those fights. And he continues to go forward fighting as an underdog. He lost to Usyk, controversial as it was, and then won the next three fights in a row. All those fights, he was an underdog. What modern day fighter do you see at or near the top of a sport that continues to do that? And he's doing it again. He's about to be the underdog for the fifth fight in a row. So kudos to Daniel Dubois. He's not only overcome odds, but he's come back after a lot of the negative press he received after the Joyce and Usyk losses. People were questioning his heart and his character, so on and so forth. Despite the controversy of the Usyk fight, there was a little bit of talk about, hey, he kind of packed it in at the end and quit. So, you have a lot of discussion here for the rematch, because Usyk himself, good as he's been, and he's been great. I mean, Usyk has accomplished so much. The resume of Usyk, when you go back to the amateurs and the pros, hard to top, man. I'm telling you. I know people don't want to talk about him, rivaling the greatest Ali and whatnot, and obviously Ali is untouchable in a legendary status, but dude, you got to start mentioning Usyk in these conversations with the Holyfield and whatnot. Really, really impressive resume. Going back to the amateurs, where he competed in 2 Olympics, won a gold medal in one of them, and then undisputed cruiserweight champion, undisputed heavyweight champion. The question for Usyk is, when is too much? When are you starting to get old, and when does it catch up to you? Because he's getting to the age now, he's 37, 38-ish, where you get in the ring, and around that time, sometimes you still got it, and sometimes you don't. And when you don't, man, it comes crashing down pretty well. So with Usyk, that's the question mark. And he's shown not really a lot of signs of fading so far. I know the Dubois fight was a little bit controversial, but even after that, he's looked good. And I'm one of those people that thought the Dubois situation was more so to have to do with the wet ring, not the fact that he took the body shot and went down. He could have probably got up had the referee been counting, but still he was hurt. But I think also the fact that he was there to be hit with that body shot. I from being a footwork guy myself, I've trained in wet rings. It was one of the most frustrating things in the world if you're a footwork fighter and you have a wet ring. And that ring was wet that night. It was raining. The promotion that ran that boxing card in Poland didn't do a good job covering the ring. It was a rainstorm, so when you're a footwork guy and you have a wet ring, it's very, very difficult to navigate in there. And it's possible that Usyk may not even have been able to get hit with that shot had there been a dry ring where his footwork wasn't affected, So granted, a lot of ifs. If this, if that, if this. You know what? That's why we're getting the rematch. And kudos to Usyk for taking Dubois on. Now, here's the other side of that. Is Usyk taking on Dubois reminiscent of Roy Jones not going away after he beat Antonio Tarver controversially, and instead saying, no, I can beat him convincingly, I'm going to fight him again. Instead of, say, doing what Lennox Lewis did against Vitaly Klitschko, where he also won a bit controversially. He got the stoppage win, but he was losing on the cards, and people wanted to see another rematch. People wanted to see a rematch, and Lennox said, no, I beat him, I'm leaving. Those are the two examples. Lennox, looking back, people look at his career in a stellar way. People also look at Roy Jones' career in a stellar way, but it's almost like that, after that, he went on a monumental downturn. And a lot of people, unfortunately, mention that too much, in my opinion, when it comes to Roy Jones' career, which was a stellar career, So are you risking that tainted opinion, if it's something that even matters, really? Are you risking that tainted opinion here by taking on Dubois again when you really don't have to? You could say you beat him and you stopped him and let Dubois go on his tear continuously, and the heavyweight division would be interesting if Usyk does retire, because Dubois would be the consensus number one, and he would be difficult to beat. He would be difficult to knock off. There's some good heavyweights right now, Even I'm curious about this guy Caballero as well, who just beat Zhilei Zhang. Fury's talking about coming back as well. There's some curiosities in the heavyweight division, but let's face it, if Usyk retires, Dubois would be looked at as the top guy, And Usyk could say, hey, man, listen, I beat him. I left her. I'm leaving. And just as Vitaly became the number one guy after Lennox left, and Lennox had no qualms about it, and he said, listen, I beat him. I'm leaving. I don't have to stick around for him. So, I don't know. It's just something to think about here as we analyze this fight. Dubois is now very much more confident. He's coming into his physical prime, 26, 27 years old. He's an energy type of fighter, which an energy type of fighter a lot of times can consume more crafty older fighters, because the crafty older fighter, although he looks to offset the energy of the young fighter with the craftiness, sometimes cannot do it because the energy and the high octane pace is too much. Usyk has shown that he can handle it so far, but this is a dangerous fight now because Dubois has seen Usyk already. He knows what he's dealing with now. And like I said, Dubois' confidence has grown to another level coming off of all these wins where he was the underdog. So he's not going to care, not only that he's the underdog again, but also that he's seen Usyk. What can Usyk do differently? Obviously, the ring not being wet, if Usyk's footwork is sharp, I think Usyk can offset the power of Dubois. But could we see something, even if Usyk wins, could we see a knockdown of Usyk, where Dubois drops him and Usyk has to get up off the canvas, which essentially you could say happened last time. He did have to get up off the canvas, but he was given a lot of time. It's controversial as it was, still kind of off the canvas, right? So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, man. I think this is an interesting fight, interesting rematch, and kudos to both guys for doing it, honestly, because a lot of times we get these kind of things and we don't see it, even if they are the number 1 and 2 guys. And again, speaking of that, the heavyweight division once again giving us the number 1 and 2 guys going head to head. Something that way too many boxing weight classes do not do these days.